if you work at the king's court, you will hear poets constantly doing things.
Mm.
And there's a sense among some of the Jewish intellectuals is, well, they think their language is so great. We can do everything with Hebrew.
Huh.
Hebrew is what God created the world with. Hebrew is the ancient language. We can do everything they can do. We can do it with Hebrew.
Yeah.
And that is part of the stimulus for this idea. So, and there's a copying, right? They see what's going on in the king's court, how people sit around and they sing poetry and they have these parties. They come back together as Jews, Jewish men of culture, in the privacy of their gardens, and they have their own poetic culture that creates it. And so there's a symbiosis that's happening, and it's kind of a healthy antagonism as well.
I have to ask at this point.
Yeah.
So there's a great deal of similarity. One very clear and central dissimilarity, however, for a Muslim situation is the drinking aspect. So how did I mean, I don't, like thinking about this cultural piece of it, like when the Jews were like very explicitly employing the wine piece into their poetry, into their singing, and probably also into their gatherings, how much were they conscientious of this? Like, this is something that we do that they're not doing. Also, their wine poetry doesn't exist. They're not going to compete with our wine or drinking poetry.
Right. So in the Islamic context, wine poetry starts to become very difficult and very weird. It's a pre-existing Islam. It's a pre-Islamic Arabic tradition of wine poetry. So some people, because before Islam, they drank wine.
So how do they have to thread that needle?
So some of them would say, "Oh, it's a metaphor. Wine, knowledge of God. It's this mystical sort of thing." You have that. Other people in Spain, it was known the Muslims drank wine, and the clerics would get upset. And the people would do what they did because they're in Spain and it's different. And then every once in a while, there'd be trends of more puritanical Islam that comes in and stops it. So
you're saying it's a geographical context difference? Like if they were in Egypt, if they're in Saudi Arabia,
they're far. They're kind of far. Also, I think the fact that they're surrounded by Christians who do drink wine and the Jewish minority that also drinks wine.